Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our webinar series, Embracing Change. Today, we are going to discuss step 8 of the 8 steps to self-discovery. We have Mickra joining us from Austin, Texas. There she is. Welcome, Mickra.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Good morning, early morning for you. Rise and shine.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're gonna talk about the secret to elevating performance. And I think if that's okay with you, Mickra, I'd like to go really basic and start step by step and build. And of course, you take it as you want to flow. But let's just start, with the basics. What is genomics and what is epigenetics, and why do these matter? So let's go really simple, if you don't mind.
Sure. We all have a DNA blueprint, and this is it's essential to recognize that while we're 99.9% the same, we're also, this tiny bit of difference that makes us unique. And so our genetic blueprint, of course, which is inherited from the mother and the father and through the transgenerational lines, it gives us a beginning window of precision for optimizing our health and well-being. And so in the beginning, when genomics came out and everybody said, oh, this is the answer to everything, there was disappointment, right? Because with genetics, it's simply a predisposition, right? So you have this hardwired code, and it's easily changeable. Now, I don't mean changing as in you're going to change your DNA blueprint, okay, but you can change the expression of that DNA blueprint. Okay. And that's where epigenetics comes in. Okay. And epigenetics basically means over the genes, right? And it's if you think of it simplistically, it's how nature and nurture interact. So how you and your environment partner to create an experience and an outcome. So we take everything in, right? What we eat, what we drink, how we sleep, what we think, whether we let our emotions flow or not, chemicals that we wipe on our skin or clean with in our environment, the smog, the pollution, all of that is an input to the human system, and it creates something in the system, right, which leads to an outcome. And so say we just take eating, for example, and we contrast the what I call the whole food human, right, who eats everything that we're designed to eat in nature, and the carb human who eats processed fake food, right, high sugars, high fats, two very different inputs to the system. And generally, you can tell what those inputs are to the system simply by looking at it: health state, disease state.
So, but it's only 0.1%. Like, that sounds pretty ridiculous.
It is, but how amazing. This is the thing. We're all exactly the same with this slight variance, but that slight variance makes us, right, different colors, different genders, different everything. It's to see the uniqueness of us when there's such a small variance. It's miraculous, really.
So now let's go back one step again to nature versus nurture, right? I mean, when it all came out, like you said, everybody thought, wow, I'm now predisposed. I'm pretty much toast, right? To put it politely. And then they came back and said, no, that's not correct. You actually can influence the expression, as you put it. So, like, how much influence do we have? Is it like, how does that work? And in which areas do we have more or less? Or is it whether it's disease, whether it's, like, for example, I'm predisposed, for example, because of my father to, let's say, diabetes or heart disease and things like that. So can you explain the difference between disease and maybe the other areas?
Sure. When we talk about variants, right, this little variance that we are, it's called a single nucleotide polymorphism. It just simply means the variance in the genes. people talk mutations, which are actual negative expressions that are there that generally are not modified by lifestyle. So they're super rare, super rare. Fortunately, what a lot of the newcomers to the field are doing, they're using the word mutation when it should be variance. And then there's that fear factor, right? That comes with, oh my goodness, I have this. Yeah. You know, these single nucleotide polymorphisms allow us to take control of our destiny. So if you said, let's take the reins of the destiny and let's go what's here, what has the potential to express in either a really positive way or a less than beneficial way. So as we identify those two things, we're able to look at it and say, okay, so as you demonstrated, the insulin resistance pattern is a predisposition. If you know it runs in your family, and you look at what your family has been eating, if it's expressed. So it's there, they eat not quite so healthy foods, they're pre-diabetic and then diabetic. Now we don't look at it this way, we look at it as insulin resistance, right? Instead of, because diabetes is a label that's a lifestyle effect, right? So if you said that predisposition is there, of course, you're going to get labs to correlate that you're actually having an experience with it, right? So your whole family line can have what is called diabetes or insulin resistance, and you can completely have nothing to do with it, you know, you've always exercised, you've always eaten well, you don't take in processed sugars in high amounts. Yeah. And your labs come back, you don't have that expression. It's the power of our actions, right? Our choices to live a really thrivingly healthy life, you know, taking in proteins from walks, swims, or flies, or vegetarian protein, if animal protein is not ideal for you. Yeah. You know, and just ensuring that you aren't promoting the ability for that to be an experience for you as well.
Okay, so now I'm going to go a little off and then we'll come back. So when I was ill and I was experiencing my cancer, and after the 11 months, we took my father for a checkup. His HbA1c was 10. And he was not eating any different than before my cancer. And at that time, it was below 7. Okay. Now, that's a pretty heavy, and his main artery, which he only had one left, was fully blocked at 95% plus. Now, there's only one explanation for it, right? The experience he had to have his son be told that he may not be there, you know, in the future. Now, is that for real? Like, it happened. So, I mean, for me, it's for real. But do you see that? Can stress have that level of impact on all of these elements in the body? Because you talked about emotion, you talked about thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And the answer is, of course, right? And while we can't say that was 100% of the reason that occurred, the impact of negative stress on the body is profound. Now, we know that we require stress as an organism to thrive. Yeah. And so people who are trying to escape stress, it doesn't make sense, because that's as unhealthy as having too much stress. But the import that we could give to this very one piece of the disruption of deep human connection and relations, the fear of losing a loved one, especially, right? Parents don't expect their children to go before them. You know, that has an effect on every single level in the human system. you know, from the very DNA, right, all the way out. And so it's important to address those things. The medical model right now is basically just going, here are the things that you have to look at. Here are the norms. And if you're outside the norms, we're finally going to do something. And, you know, you said he was 10, he was 7 before. Well, 5.2 is where we want our A1C, right? And so, yeah, you know, I'm going to look around for the studies that are looking at this piece in particular. I would assume that they're pretty rare, because it's only been recently that we've been willing to know the human system as a complex system where every interaction has an effect. But certainly, you know, anyone going through anything like that, their number one priority is to decrease the stress levels, not only so that they can be present for the one who's in this experience, but so that they don't put extra toll on their system. We see it a lot in caretakers of cognitive decline or Alzheimer's people. They actually age and sometimes decline much more quickly than those that they're caring for. And so this is a really big deal.
Yeah, so when we have a couple and one of them is not well, we actually care for the caregiver most of the time more than actually the person who's not well, because of the fact that it's harder to watch for many. And like you said, they have to be giving a lot of themselves. And as a result, those outcomes become very challenging, right? So now you're, you know, it was easier when it was just genomics and we kind of threw out the responsibility to our parents and our grandparents. Now, Mickra, you've brought it back on our heads, right? You're asking us to take absolute personal responsibility for our future, right? So where are we now with that? And like, you know, and where is this going? So so right now you're saying we have the influence, we have the power to choose. Is that what I'm hearing?
It is. And I like to look at it from the perspective of sovereignty, right? Okay. Reclaiming our sovereignty. You know, you can go back in history and look at the cultures who knew that everything mattered. The Greeks knew that lifestyle mattered. You know, so many of our ancient traditions knew, and the life included a balance of those things so that the system could stay in homeostasis. You know, what's happened over time in this modern, right, this new beautiful modern environment, right? Beautiful, because we're living in a time that we've never had exposure to. Our lives are really pretty easy. So imagine the evolution of, all of this ramping up so quickly, right? Technology is exponential and the discoveries are exponential. Our systems are taking longer to catch up to that exponential nature. And so for the first time, we recognize we have control over ourselves, control over the environments we put ourselves in, control over the places we send our consciousness to. You know, there's a very big difference in someone who sits and watches serial TV, reality shows, right, that are drama, and the person who's out in nature actually being connected to our environment. Right, you're basically, and you sit inside and watch these shows, and you're connected to that level of consciousness, and all of the marketing and the advertisements that come through that. It's all about being broken and what you need to fix what's broken, and all the side effects it's going to fix it. Right, and so this acceptance of responsibility means that I'm the only one who can do anything about my state of existence. Now, I may come to you to partner with you because you understand complex systems and you look at everything, not just my A1C, right? Or these traditional medical markers. And also, it isn't, what you would say root cause. It's a complex system that has so many parts and pieces that you're almost like a detective, right? You're looking into the system and going, okay, how did that stress play into that A1C? And how did this, take sleep offline, which then creates memory issues, all kinds of things, right? So it's a complexity that if you have the right person to guide you and you have your precision, especially, the epigenetics predisposition, you can really move the system greatly in as little as 90 days by taking simple actions that are not a big deal and that don't cost anything. I mean, this is why people say, well, I can't afford that. And I can't buy organic, pure foods. And I say, of course you can. And if you simply chose to do an experimentation of what can I live off of per day, I've got a friend with a nonprofit, $1.50 per day for people to live. Now, right? It's very interesting in doing that, but most of us don't live on $1.50 a day. We have lots of resources to buy pure food sources and really take measures that are going to optimize and then actually enhance our health and well-being so that we do not get sick and we do not die addled and broken. It is not a necessity for that.
So you want to give us an example of the little things that, so people can kind of visualize or consider some of the steps that you just gave that are, that are not going to have them request them to move mountains, whether it's financial or otherwise.
Yeah, and when we look at what are the top epigenetically informed interventions, if you start with we say chronic exercise. So if you said 3 to 4 days a week of moderate intensity for 6 months, that's been proven to beneficially up or down regulate 7,500 genes. And knowing that we have 23,000, that's a third of our genes that is getting beneficial modification from simple exercise. And that can be, it can be movement, it can be weight training, cardio, energy movement like Tai Chi and Qigong. I mean, there are so many dance, right? So many things to get the body moving the way it was designed to move, right? So that's on the exercise side. Meditation, right, which is stilling the system, going to the interior, quieting the mind, quieting the physiology. It beneficially up and down regulates 2,500 plus. There's so much more than that, but right now, at least, proof of that. And we all know that in stillness, our body and mind can regenerate, can restore itself because we do have self-healing capacity. When you look at the breath, to me, the number one intervention where we have complete control, right? You say it's an autonomic or automatic process that we breathe. Body just does it for us. Yes, it does. And we also have control over that. Most people are breathing now in their chest when we're designed to breathe in basically the tummy through the diaphragm. And that breathing in the chest is fast. So 24 breaths per minute versus 6 is the ideal. That fast breath, it activates the sympathetic receptors in the upper lungs. So the whole system gets a signal that says, something's off, something's off, something's off. So we're constantly on alert for what's off. And, you know, I like to say that consciousness rides the breath, the very existence of us. The breath is what comes first when we're born, flows through us, and then is the last thing we do. And so if we put our focus on slowing down our breath into the diaphragm with small volumes, not taking big breaths, because then we blow off all the carbon dioxide, and that's what delivers oxygen. Right. So it's just simply, let's take slower breaths through the diaphragm in small volumes. So I like to say coffee straws, like imagine the air coming in a coffee straw is really measured and small, and your CO2 builds up, delivers the oxygen, and your system is highly oxygenated, using that oxygen in its best capacity. That helps the brain stay youthful. It helps with cognition. It helps with emotional and mental kind of regulation. Everything, you know, muscles and performance in our workouts. It's just so essential. And then, of course, what kind of food are we taking in? Is the food of the planet, right? And not modified or the factory farming that's done with all of these animals squished into tiny things. That's not a natural way for an animal to be, right, treated. That fear, it's like fear in their nervous system too. That fear goes into the meat itself, not to mention the antibiotics and the hormones and the horrible food that they're being fed. All of that then is translated to us when we eat it. So it's important to source everything from the highest, cleanest sources that we can have, least modified sources that we can have, and have a period of that 90 days, you know, where you might say, I'm going to commit to having no processed anything, nothing that comes out of a package, right? Nothing that is dried and can be on a shelf for 20 years. None of that, right? Fruits, vegetables, you know, legumes, you know, whether you're plant-based or animal-based, all of those things in a beautiful balance to get the micronutrients and the neural nutrients that we need. It's important.
And what I mean, with that, I mean, since I'm calculating the math now, what number of genes are being influenced with that? Because we're already at 10,000 out of 23,500. So what are we doing with the food? Do we have any stats on that, or am I just being
not yet? And here's why. You know, unfortunately, our standard regulating bodies have, like in the US, we have this food pyramid, right? And originally it was stood up around really a lot of what was thought to be healthy. So we had, you know, this whole grain base that we know now people have really extreme challenges with processing grains and many gluten, right? And so it was taught to us that this is what's healthy without the scientific backing that was required. And we thought we had it. We thought we had it, but now that more of this precision is here, we're able to begin to get the proof. Dr. Lucia Aronica at Stanford, we work with her, and she's coming out with incredible studies on genetic and epigenetically informed eating strategies that can be validated. And so that's where you start with what's in your genetic blueprint, and you program your food and all of your intake to that place. And then for 90 days, you work with that programming, right? And this is where the responsibility comes in, because if you say you want to get healthier, feel better, remember more, you get to do the work for that, right? It's not given to you. And so it's what level of focus are we willing to put into informing our health in a new way so that we stay healthy, don't decline, and have a thriving existence here. That is possible for all of us, and it takes action.
So based on what you're saying, I would say we're at least at 50% plus with just these three elements, which I know are not, I mean, they're not difficult. And of course, if you added sleep to it, which obviously would be impacted by the meditation and the breath, right? I mean, you're already, you're covering a lot of that 23,500, right? So I think it's not as difficult as people may think, right? Because when people hear about it, they get overwhelmed. That's why I wanted to start really basic and say, listen, it's not that complicated, right? It's not that you have to change everything. But of course we have to make effort, right? We don't make the effort, it's not going to come. So now now we have a basic understanding of what it is and why it matters. Now, where is this going? Like, what's the future look like? And obviously with longevity and life expectancy going the way it is, we need to think forward, right? We need to think way ahead. So should we be concerned? Should we be excited? I mean, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, it is. It's based on your choice, right? We'll take the concerned piece first. There is a lot of fear base in our entire system around this human being. That it doesn't know how to take care of itself, that the responsibility has to be handed over to someone else who knows more, and, from a concern perspective, that's the biggest one, is giving away our sovereignty to a medical system that doesn't look at the human as a complex system. It looks at the human as a complicated system where there is a root, and we can get right to that root with one pill or one strategy that will never completely optimize the human system. Right? So concern, yes, if you continue to give away your responsibility and your sovereignty to the experts to know what is best for you, it's probably going to be of concern, because the limited information that we're being provided doesn't give us what we need to be successful. Now, on the I say shiny future side, the great news is we have enough information now. We have enough science validation now in clinical execution, right? Using these things, these simple lifestyle strategies, the data is coming back profound. People are stepping out of insulin resistance and diabetes numbers in 90 days. It's that fast. And so when you say, okay, what is my future potential? It's thriving and flourishing until it's time for us to transition. At whatever point that may be. And simply by going, okay, I know if I have the precision of me, if you can tell me what you're seeing in my predispositions, and you can give me strategies that are small changes that create big outcomes, I'm going to take those actions and I'm going to follow through for at least 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks is like the minimum. You've got to follow through for 6 weeks. But 90 days, how powerful those changes are. And you don't want to go back to not making you the number one priority. Your health and well-being is the number one priority for a life of excellence. Happy, healthy, contributing. That's you taking care of you, right? On that, to just answer more precisely, what does the future hold? We're going to have such precision with all of the new biometrics being collected, the trackers that we all wear that show us what's true about our sleep, what's true about our stress and our energy systems, level of beauty. By having those numbers, we see what what our input equals. There's no question that wine and alcohol are toxic to the system and impact sleep in everyone. Right? whether you have it.
You want to say it again? Because some people might just fall off after you say that. Let's count how many disappear.
But it's like this. It's like, they did a study on 4,000 people and, all different levels of intake of alcohol. Every single person had an impact on the quality of their sleep, right? The deep sleep is the time where the brain cleans itself.
Yeah.
And if we don't have it, imagine what's stacking up in the brain that will cause decline and cognitive issues soon to come, right? So as we use this data to prove to ourselves, right? It's not somebody telling us about us. It's proof of our system in action, proof of the strategies that we implement. We won't take actions that are going to decline and destroy the system, right? While still being able to have fun and adventure. That's the thing. You're not giving up a thriving life by taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah, for some of the Europeans, saying that we need to drink less wine could be, it could be life-threatening to you, Mickra.
I'm not saying that wine isn't of benefit. I'm saying that overconsumption is always, with anything, overconsumption does take a toll.
Yeah. So now, in terms of, so we have this incredible way forward. You're saying, don't give up your power to the reactive, space of losing sovereignty. And also when they're looking at only one little slice of the human system rather than the whole human system, right? Now, what about the next gen and the future? Are they being educated? Do you see that education happening? Because from my side, I don't. What's happening with them? Are they pushing back and saying, no, this is not working for us? Or is there still a massive gap?
It's a bit of the end both. What we watch, and it's the same in the adult and older populations, it's where do you send your consciousness, right? Is it to mainstream education that still has it in a reductionistic, siloed approach? You think about when the mind-body connection was made, and more people began to realize that the mind creates everything, creates our entire experience, including what's going on in our body. And so the newer generations are both extremely more depressed and at risk for the system fracturing, right, and not being healthy, and also stronger. What I watch in the, I say, more aware millennials and those coming behind, with the parents who are informing them on what the human system requires to thrive, they aren't going down the road of choosing the fast food and the fake sugars and the things that age the system prematurely. Okay. They're clear and they're bright, they're creative and innovative. And so it's, for me, I say this: how quickly can we get this new complex systems precision at all levels of being across the lifespan, right? So preconception planning, where the mother and father are prepared to bring that life in before they bring the life in, right? Because everything that the father does 6 months up to birth matters significantly. Of course, we all know the mother's contribution of that. And then from there, right, having the baby's precision data of genetics and strategies for stillness and for breath and really incredible food to go into the system, that just carries itself throughout life. It's an automatic thing. Once you know the value of it and you feel amazing, you're not going to let that go. You know, and as we age, you know, the hormones decline and the brightness within us, the zest, the joy for life begins to decrease. And that's never a nice way to be, to feel. That doesn't have to happen, right? Depending on the inputs that we choose to partake of.
Yeah, but a lot of people will say I'm getting old, right? It's normal, like spare parts, right? Like, you know, the parts are getting, so on one hand, you're saying the decline is happening, but we have choice. But how much choice do we have, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you that it's at least 80%.
Okay, so it doesn't.
We have control over 80%.
Okay.
That's the majority, right?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, all mortality, death. You look at the statistics. 75% of all death is lifestyle informed, right? You look at all the top killers of us, and it's lifestyle informed. You know, when you look at accidents, what contributes to accidents? Sometimes substance, sometimes inattention, right? Not being in awareness, sometimes being upset where we can't be in awareness. You know, it's just so interesting if you just step back and say, what are all of the things that contribute to that? People abuse their body, and we'll say overuse their bodies, pushing them as if they can constantly repair no matter how much you push it. Well, when you break things, when you stretch and strain things and you don't allow them to heal, they're going to create things like arthritis in the future, right? And so it's this moderation that's important. Do we have to push ourselves so hard that we break us? Because we are breaking us, right? Nobody else is breaking us. We are. And so, you know, knowing what's your genetic best type of workout, you know, your propensity to soft tissue damage, to cartilage damage, those things can give us clues of, you know, whether we're going to have rotator cuff issues. And knowing that, we're going to be more mindful of how we're actually using that, right? And if it goes to feeling like it's sort of painful, we have to back off before we damage that, right? And so we have such control. And what I like to do is I like to say, how do my actions impact my future generations? I have 5 boys. They're strong, healthy, bright leaders. They're leaders. They question. And they know how to take care of this entire human system. You know, what do their kids look like? I think more aware, and their kids more aware, and their kids more aware. And so not only in 4 generations do we have human systems that are really optimized and thriving, we have new generations of hearts and souls who don't make the same choices. Those feedlot farm things go away because no one will participate, right? The destruction of the planet lessens and goes away because we realize without that ecosystem being thriving, we cannot thrive. She is our existence. Right. And so it's literally an expansion or an enhancement of consciousness that allows us to reconnect to the planet, reconnect to each other, recognize that community and relations, deep, loving bonds matter, right? And that we can cultivate those in our communities. And, you know, it's amazing what will happen by the choices that we take. It does matter. You know, I was laughing yesterday. I had this thought, and the thought was this: I'm certain that my life and my actions on this planet matter to its future outcome. You know, people like to say, well, I'm one person. I can't help with carbon footprint, and I can't do this, and I can't do climate change. And that's simply not true, because one person's action seen by others, and they just go, I want to live that joyful life too. What do you do? Right? And it's contributions to others that actually promote that. And so I like to call it a viral vector. When one person moves into greater awareness of their impact, many follow. It's astounding. And we have a lot of work, right? Systems are broken, but it's okay, because we can create new ones.
Yeah. So you feel that moving from the me to the we and the oneness, you see that happening, you see the hope, you see the impact, you see, I mean, I know you're saying it's broken, but are you, I know you're hopeful always, obviously that's, but with the new gen, you see that they're getting it. They're getting it because the conformists, you know, the old school, and even when we taught religion, right, it was taught because this was the way it is, right? Yes. When you went to school, it's my way or the highway, you know?
And it's it.
Yeah. Unless you wanted to get detention and get expelled, but that's besides the point. So you're seeing that hopefulness, and through that level of consciousness, and then and again, going a little further on the concept of love, right? You talked about love. How does that play a part in this whole epigenetics, genomics part in terms of influence on ourselves and others, and you know, the origin of life, as you spoke to, right? The man 6 months before, and obviously the 9 months that the child is in the mother. How are those playing a part?
You know, I'm going to tell you that love is everything. Love is everything. And I don't refer to conditional love, that if you do this for me, I will love you, right? I'm talking about open-armed, high heart, so far open, there are no containers on it. That love, I mean, just take it from the perspective of preparing for this new soul coming into form. If that soul and if the creation of that life is done with intentional love, with connection, with speaking to the soul of that baby who's coming in, with having a relationship that is profound in utero, right? And moving forward, all of the traumas that we experience through the stress of human life are taken off the plate. The nervous system is still and trusting, right? This is where love comes in. The human system must trust to know that it's self-healing, you know? And so the ability to cultivate love is also, I call it time under tension. We must do things to promote that love, whether it's in our intimate relationships, our family relationships, our work relationships, our community relationships, our global relationships. If all of those are, even if you said seen through a lens of love and connection, it changes everything. Love truly changes everything. But most often, it's seen through the conditional nature. Well, he hurt me, she hurt me, they're separate from me. No. They're humans. living human lives. And sometimes that's a bit messy. But we're also not just humans living human lives, right? The essence of our existence is love. And so, you know, when you have a lens of love on everything, this is where the hope and the faith come in, right? Without that hope and without faith in knowing that we are going to thrive, that we are going to repair the damage that we've done here, not just to ourselves and others, but the planet, and even the universe, because we're all connected, right? It's stunning what's coming. And I'm just great. I invite everybody to make a choice. What reality would you like to experience? Would you like a thriving, flourishing, connected experience? Or would you like one of separation, greed, war, and destruction? I mean, this is basically, we have the choice of those things. And then once you make that choice, what actions will you take to ensure that our species survives? A lot of people don't really go to the species level, and that's okay. If the motivation is, I care so much about my family and my family's future generations, the legacy that we leave on this planet for the better. If that's the driving motivation, let it be, right? Legacy matters. And so, you know, one of the things I'd like to say is, you know, when you're talking about this new generation, a lot of we say that they're in this bridge transition between what we were told we had to do and did, and what they know they're not going to do, right? They're asking the questions why. And parents who are, you know, really open to the discussions of why, you know, instead of because I said, right? And I don't think there may not be a lot of that going on anymore, but when they're open to that discussion, the intelligence of these new kids, the philosophical nature that we can kind of catalyze within them, they will create the solutions that we need to thrive. And parents who are, I think, frustrated and fearful that they're going through their growing stages, that they're doing a little bit of rebellion, that they might be taking actions that could be detrimental to their future. This is where parents can trust that they've equipped them with the resources that they need to remain in balance and really contribute at greater levels. You know, that's the biggest, I think, dampener that I see as this bridge happens, is that parents are, oh my God, they're on computers all day and they're never outside and they're blah, blah, blah. You know, those things, it's okay to some respect. Because it's part of this bridge transition. There is hope in all of that also.
So, okay, so we've talked about what these elements mean, why they're important, the present state, the future state, right? And obviously we've brought the love element, the origin of life, soul, and all of that. I mean, and you've been working with a number of families that we work together with in terms of looking at their genomics, epigenetics, nutrition, fitness, sleep. We didn't touch on supplements, right? What kind of role do supplements play? And you know, with this world, there's just a lot out there, and people are, you know, it's become like a candy in the old days, right? So how does one go about approaching that without overdoing it or getting maybe not enough? Like, how do you find that balance?
And this is, I think this is one of also the most important things, because the proof of the supplements in the system is early on, right? And so somebody says, oh, this new miracle thing, you got to take it. Well, the only things that you should be taking are things that your system shows at least a propensity of a deficiency for. And your genetics can give that beginning possibility of deficiency, right? So that genetic blueprint is a wonderful beginning to fine tune those things. You know, what we do is we say, show us all your supplements. And, you know, I have 20, I'll take 20 supplements. And we'll go, okay, why are you taking that? And what's your proof that it's actually doing good in your system? I feel better. Okay, do you have any other metrics that show that that's improved, whether it's labs, stress scores, sleep quality? You know, what are those markers? And you know, knowing that our food supply has depleted significantly over the last 35, 50 years. You know, the soils are depleted. We're not getting all of the things that we need through our food, right, to thrive. You know, an incredible multivitamin is essential for everyone. And I know there are a lot of people who do not want to take these additional things because they say, I just want to take it in all naturally. You simply can't get the levels that you need naturally. You can get a lot of them, right? But the supplementation very strategically designed for you based on the genetics, based on your labs, based on your the stress markers. They make all the difference. And it really has to be taken in for 30 to 90 days and beyond. 6 months is generally a really good time. If it's noted, say that you have an issue with grain and your GAD1 genes, that's the glutamate to GABA conversion in the brain, is depleted. You know, magnesium glycinate helps with that. If you're going to continue to take those things in, right? It helps the brain, it helps the sleep, it helps dampen the effects of that. You know, and there's so many like this. You know, we can identify right now 25 vitamins and minerals that are deficiencies potentially in the system. Then you correlate that with blood, and you see that. And so strategically supplementing is now available. And it's trusting in, right, the guidance that you're given, because you recognize that person guiding understands the complex system. And then being very, very strategic in it and disciplined so that you know what's working. And in that way, you're not guessing, you're not taking in too much of something like selenium. Can be toxic because it's in so many different things. You know, you can have toxicity to several of the, like zinc and copper, if you have predispositions for that, if you take in too much. And so it's just so nice to not guess, you know, to not guess.
Because a lot of people don't have that feedback loop that you talked about, right? They're not measuring, they're not reconfirming, they're not validating, and they're just taking it because they were told, or it's the thing to do, right? We see that a lot, and it's always an exercise of bringing that 20 down to the essentials, right? And also to make sure that there's no excess, like you said. Yeah. All right, we have about 6 minutes left. What haven't we touched on as you do the process of that 8th step, right? To look at the people's nutrition, fitness, sleep, and supplements, or anything else on the epigenetics genomic side? I mean, I know you've done a number of podcasts and interviews recently. Is there something that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with those listening and those that will listen later?
Yeah, you know, going a bit deeper, just you know, because we have the available information. Yeah. Environmental detoxification is very important. You know, so many of the environmental inputs cause kind of, you know, disruption in the system. And there are ways to look at the detoxification pathways so that we know, you know, like, is your glutathione, which is the master antioxidant, is your glutathione thriving? How are your mitochondrial levels, like the energy in the mitochondria? How is that performing? Just rate so many things on that side. And then there's rate also what's going on in the neurotransmitters in your brain, in the stress cycles. So trauma, you know, there is genetic predisposition to how you encode emotional events, right, that are impactful from a trauma perspective. Those predispositions are there. You know, there's also now the ability to look at empathy, right? What do your genetics say about your empathy? You know, we can tell from the brain if there's a certain brain wave expression that you're not producing oxytocin. Oxytocin is that trust hormone. And there are ways to turn that mu off in the brain. So, you know, and this comes to connection. You know, what is that love bond that you have with your baby or your mate? With mu, there's a bit of a disconnection from the intensity of that. And so you sit outside of life a bit and wonder why everybody's so emotional, right? There's so many things that we can find out about the human system, and prevent. I see the Indian prepone is let's address it before it's even a something, so that it doesn't need to be addressed in the acute and then chronic state. So think, let's not let the system decline, so that we don't have to repair it. And
label it and react to it, right? Because it gets labeled and then all these different ways. So we've got a question here. What daily practices, disciplines would Mickra recommend to help optimize body-mind?
Mm-hmm. You know, my favorite one is getting in nature every day. You know, even if you live in the concrete jungle, modern beauty, there's nature there too, right? So find nature daily. You know, if you can't actually physically get out to it, you can find nature in virtual reality and at least spend time in nature. Two really is around, I say, presence, right? Being in touch with your environment in this now moment. You can get there through the breath. You can get there through guided meditations. You can get there, you know, through stillness meditation, right? Where your idea is, let's just stop all the thoughts. Let's get out of the mind, get into the mind body, and what information is coming through that channel. It's a totally different thing than disconnecting thoughts or promoting stillness in the system. Increasing your interoception. What are you feeling, intuiting, sensing within your body? The hunger signals. What does the body want to take in right now? Does it need beats or, right? This movement is essential every day. And we joke about counting 10,000 steps, but you know, you really mostly should have 20,000 steps. Let's get moving, because all of those signals in the body say thriving. You know, on the side of love and gratitude and joy and awe, what awe do you see in your daily life? Look for awe. Look for what we would call miracles and synchronicities. They're there all the time. And it's just, are we paying attention to them? You know, so, you know, you can say gratitude, which is great. It's a good place to start, because that's an emotion that we can feel, you know, with our families and with our abundance. The joy and awe of the miracle of existence. Look for that. I mean, we're amazing. And we don't give credit to the amazing nature of us. You know, and really your environment. This is where neuroaesthetics come in. Look around your environment. What do you see? What do you feel, right? You see a lot of plants. I have a lot of plants in my home, and it's basically bringing outdoors in. And the power of that is phenomenal. You know, and then really the love your people and tell them that you love them. They may not be here tomorrow. And, you know, we can sort of overlook the little human conditioning that we have and see beyond it into the truth of that system, which is love. And so those would be the biggest things, I think, for me. And then carefully promoting your sleep environment, right? Cool temperature, no light, no electronics, right? Put a red light. They've got these little red lights that you can put on the toilet that you don't have to turn anything on. It's a motion sensor, and it just makes it red, and it doesn't bother the melatonin cycle. So if you have to get up, you can just go back to bed and go to sleep. It all matters. The sheets and the pillows, and your bed should be the place you spend your money, so that in all that time that you sleep there, you just love it and can't wait to get back in it. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, Mickra. Let's see, there's another comment. Yeah. It's a daily gratitude that we touched upon. All right. Perfect. All right.
Yeah, journaling. You know, journaling is whether you audio journal it, video blog it every day, or you're going to sit down and write.
Yeah.
You know, what were those gratitude and awe experiences? You know, what gifts did I give another human being today by being purely present with them? Those are the places where the consciousness begins to simply want more of that, and it becomes automatic in your life. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Mickra. Closing. This was a beautiful way to close, but I still want to give you a chance. What is the last thing you'd like people to consider or to think through or to reflect upon as they go start their day? For you, and for others, it's maybe the afternoon, and others like me about to head to bed.
Well, you know, I invite all of us to open into our greater expression. And that's beyond the I, right? To the we, and the unity. And it's the bigger we allow ourselves to go, recognizing that every single thing we do has an impact on all of creation. It's not just here in this environment, right? So the question would be, what is the bigger essence of my I am nature? What fuels this human system? And I like to look at it from the perspective of not what's my personal I mission, because that's easy to construct through the intellect, but more deeply, what's my soul's mission? What did I come here to experience, to contribute? And looking at it through that, you're almost looking through that lens of love, and you open to it. You don't do it. You don't make it happen. You open to it. And your life becomes an effortless, beautiful experience, because you don't have to go do it and make it happen, you know. So I invite that, because all you have to do is put this question mark in your field. What if everything I've been taught that I am might not be totally what I am, right? And so, and that usually starts the process, and you just show it to yourself. It's so beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mickra. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. Thank you again for being part of our core team and having everyone have the honor and privilege to spend time with you when they do the review. And so thank you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Next week, we'll have Jonathan, who's going to talk about your natural alignment, living in your natural alignment as step number 7. We kind of flip them backwards, which is quite interesting. And so thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Mickra. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.